Well, mine is a controversial one.
Well, you got a smile on your face.
Would Harry McKay make Carlton better right now?
Oh, geez.
Now the question,
it's dangerous territory.
Hey,
well, we waded into this a few weeks ago.
Carlton people are really happy with the 8 in a row, and they're flying. Carlton are flying, so let's just declare that. I can see a like for like for Chera. I can see a like for like for Walsh. I can see a like for like for McGovern. I can see Kennedy coming in if there's an injury. But I don't know if McKay comes in, he comes in at the expense of one of their two combative ruckmen in De Koning or Pitternet.
Well, he virtually declared, Vossi declared on the record 2 or 3 weeks ago, Pitternet as an automatic selection.
Well, and Tom De Koning has played his two best games and he's given such bite in the air and around the ground. So Harry McKay comes in, has to play his ruck minutes and then has to go forward. And the other question is, what impact does it have on the forward line that looks like it's working and absolutely humming at the moment?
Well, when you get the forward line right and the synergy's right, which it is, if you watch behind the goals, Charlie's getting all the room in the world, the smalls are playing their role. If you throw Harry McKay in there, I think it's a chaos move because you've seen De Koning play forward, actually mark it and kick goals, but plays a pivotal role, and Pitternet, you said, is an absolute shoo-in.
Well, I think it's a bit of a cheeky question, but Charlie Curnow himself has played enormous football, with or without McKay, mind you, but in the last 5 weeks without McKay, he's just gone to another level again. It hasn't just been as the aerial target in forward 50. Some of his use inside 50 when he's got up the ground and he's kicking here to smaller targets. So Owies initially, Akers as the wingman who is sliding in. You can see Owies through the middle here, who knows he's on. Now, if McKay's in the side, that kick is going to a contest to McKay. Now, he marks it fair enough, or it goes to the ground. Martin here, who's been another massive plus for them coming into the game.
Martin and Cunningham.
The other one's Silvani. You think, OK, well, out of McKay and Silvani, who's going to add the more there? But the coaching staff at Carlton will be thinking, OK, how do we maintain the balance that we've got right now? And as you can see there, you know, Curnow's kicking inside. We've
amazing. Second only to Dane Zorka.
Elite field kick. But they'd be asking themselves the question, how can we maintain this momentum and the feeling of not moving too many parts to be able to add to our side as we go forward, rather than, and not taking the risk of dismantling what we're building.
Just quickly on the ruck question, we'll go back to that. If you say you can only replace one of the ruckmen, can you generally see Harry McKay playing minutes as a backup ruckman?
I think he has to, because if you put him in the forward line and you change the tall-small balance at the moment, I think you risk losing the special sauce that's actually helped Carlton go on this run. Having said that, arguing against myself, the three wins at the start of this 8-win run by Carlton, McKay was there with Curnow. They had 27 scoring shots, kicked 16 goals between them, and Carlton averaged 110 points. So the answer is yes, he probably would, but there's a question on right now, have they developed and improved in the last 5 weeks? Is their pressure that important? Are their smalls and their run that important? And is Curnow doing just as well as he would without McKay there?
Well, you look at Collingwood's forward, like Jamie Elliott sits back there, and you got Myercheck that plays a little bit, but the space he works in, and then you got the smalls of Carlton and you play Curnow high, I can't see him fitting in there. I really can't.
Really?
Carlton supporters not going to like it, but winning formula is the way to go.
We're going to preface this with he's not fit and ready to go yet, so this is a what if, you know, going forward potentially for an elimination final or a quarter final if they can edge into that top 4 spot. But and the other thing we've got to know about finals, and we all know this, is that the game slows down a little bit. It's harder to move the ball, and you are going to need tall targets down the line. And Harry McKay's played that pretty well.
Does the goal kicking question, whether you can trust Harry in front of goals, because he's been shaky this year, does that come into account at the selection table when it comes to picking Harry McKay?
Well, I can tell you, when you're taking a set shot in a final, the pressure's a little bit more than a home and away. So history suggests that he has been shaky, and you're coming off a long spell too. So do you trust the fact that he's going to come in and be the form player you want him to be?
Well, you're going to have to give to get. So it's what you give for what you're going to get.
It's going to be a bit because he's been in this situation.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm smiling because I'm not Vossi. I mean, it's a great problem to have. I mean, Carlton are in an amazing position, and they've earned it because they've gone through the ringer this year.
Gut feel he plays him when he's ready to go, but absolutely ready to go. What's your big question, Diggo?
My big question of the weekend, well, it poses the next 4 weeks too, is Brisbane, are they the sitting duck in the 8? sitting second on the ladder. We know how big this season is from 1 to 12 and it's up for grabs, but they just haven't got the edge for me right now. And half a gut feel, but then when you look at the numbers, and not finishing games of football, so leading against Melbourne by 28 points, losing by a point, and then 37 against Geelong.
That one shifted 2 seasons. I think it shifted Melbourne into overdrive and gave them a chance, and it actually put the handbrake on Brisbane.
And then you get Geelong, 37 points. You've got to put them away. Good sides don't take your foot off the throat, and they only win by 11. And then Adelaide came back to within a goal. So I just think they're finishing and their time on. We spoke about scenarios 4 weeks ago. They weren't quite sure in terms of how they were going to control the ball. And I think it's just the polish. We know Hawthorn last week were really polished against Collingwood, the way they kicked the ball around, and this is how you find your way through teams. So let's have a look at Brisbane here. This is late in the game. So we're talking Adelaide got within 6 points. Controlling the ball here.
They were coming hard, Adelaide.
So you would think here you're going to compose yourself, you're just going to hold onto the ball, find your way through. Look at all the space that is there, and everyone's working hard to get isolation. You get isolation, you miss a target, and you cough it up, and Adelaide have a shot on goal. That, for me, is just the edge Brisbane don't have right now. So I've got my doubts on where they sit in September, and I know the record at the MCG keeps getting brought up, and Chris Fagan goes, it's not an issue, it's an issue. And you're at the home of footy, and you've got to win at the home of footy.
What about the fact that they've had close games in recent weeks? Because they went a long period of time where they didn't have a close game. So you could argue, and certainly Lions would be arguing, that they're getting more and more practice at being able to put in those game scenarios late in games and more practice to be able to execute under pressure.
Yeah, that's one scenario. Is game day you're going to test that? But I think it's beyond also scenario. It's also their midfield. They lose Ashcroft, and this is crazy to say, Brownie, but a first-year player, it's like losing Dangerfield out of your midfield. It's actually fallen apart. Like, Lachie Neale's numbers are down. The pressure is 16th in the comp over the last 6 weeks. So everything's just cooling at Brisbane at the moment. You can see Lachie Neale, 128th rated player in the competition the last 5 weeks.
Well, they had a narrow win against Fremantle a couple of weeks ago, and they were able to grind that out. But watching that game, the Fremantle midfield looked far more dynamic and agile and consistent across the 4 quarters than Brisbane did. And Lachie Neale himself was tagged by Hayden, or ran with Hayden Young, and then Young started on him, but then ran away from him and had a massive impact through the, for the 2.5 quarters before he ran out of gas because he doesn't have the midfield legs. But Lachie Neale, Josh Dunkley, and then they're looking for what ifs. Is it Bailey? Is it Zorko? Is it Rayner who can come in and provide a little bit of those legs, Berry? But they're not quite covering the ground as well as they have in the past.
Yeah, it's a good point. And as you said, Dunkley's dropped off the last fortnight. I suppose it poses the question, Jarryd Lyons. Jarryd Lyons, he played against Melbourne a few weeks ago at the MCG, and ironically, even though he lacks leg speed, actually played some good football, and the Lions played some of their best football they've played all year at the MCG against Melbourne that night. Do you say, we're going to give up a little bit of leg speed and bring in Jarryd Lyons to pick up the slack where Will Ashcroft has left off? Because I don't think people realise how much clearance dominance, or how much contribution he made from a clearance point of view. Yeah,
well, he's played 5 games this year, Jarryd. So if you sacrifice leg speed, you want him to find, obviously, the inside ball. The good teams now and the good midfielders drive their legs out of stoppage. So I think, personally, I wouldn't play him. You just got to get your stars around the ball, and you've got to get your bigger bodies around the ball. So I want to pose one more back at you in terms of the forward line. We discussed Curnow and McKay. Can they win a premiership with Danaher and Hipwood?
As the season's gone on, I trust those guys more and more. I know there's a lot of criticism towards Joe Danaher at the start of the year after that Bulldogs loss in about round 3, but I think Joe Danaher has stood up this year. I think he's been very good. I mean, Bucks did the Freo game last week, and he was the reason the Lions got over the line. I think Hipwood's a good runner and getting to work. I think he's made some good contributions as well. So, I wouldn't be as concerned about those 2 boys as what I may have been leading into the season or early in the season.